NECA doesn't need a Necronomicon to resurrect a figure. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn, the 2022 reissue Ash Williams. After a relaxing cabin vacation doesn't go as planned, Ash is left with 3 dead friends, an undead girlfriend, and an angry evil spirit on the loose. As nightfall approaches, Ash must prepare again to battle the legions of the damned if he wants to make it to dawn. Resurrecting the undead, courtesy of an audio reel, before, of course, we get a closer look at the 2022 Evil Dead 2 Ash Williams. Grabbing, of course, the tape measure tells us that the figure stands at about 6.5 inches in height, or the figure's about 16.5 centimeters tall. This body of Ash isn't anything new. In fact, we did get this body from before. Just bringing in one right now. This one happens to be from 2016. You may be looking at that and thinking, well, how would you even know that's from 2016? The figure is loose. You'll always also know by looking at the bottoms of their feet. I don't know if you can actually see that or not. If I hold it up to the lamplight, it actually says 2016 right there. The bodies are going to, though, be exactly the same. They have tweaked, of course, the color scheme. The brighter skin tone is notably different on this Ash, but there's also one other thing that you may have already noticed that's different on this Ash that wasn't on the earlier releases. What are you looking at, by the way? Oh, I see it too. While the rest of the audience is wondering what exactly we're looking at, let's bring in a couple of other Ashes here. Here's what the figure looks like. Now, this was the 2017 2-pack Evil Dead 2. This was the Kiss Your Nerves Goodbye that came packed along with Deadite Ed Getley. Obviously, different bodies completely all together. And here's also what the figure looks like with not Evil Dead 2 Ash, but more Evil Dead 1 Ash, the Ultimate Ash Williams. We've also looked at here on this channel. Not really summoning up much new in the way of accessories with this figure, as many of the accessories that we'll have a look at are pretty much ones that if you already have been collecting the Evil Dead Ash figures, you'll probably recognize right away. Like, for example, probably one of the smallest Necronomicon Ex Mortis, loosely translated to be the Book of the Dead, that we've ever gotten. We have gotten this one before. I could have easily gone back to the Dark Cellar. I really don't like to go down to the cellar because I always feel like I'm hearing noises down there. But I probably could have easily pulled out the old Necronomicon so you can see the differences that they are exactly the same. Some of the Necronomicons, though, have been a little bit more impressive than this one. This is just really tiny. The actual pages are nicely painted, as well as the sculpting on the back and the front of the book. Tiny little teeth down below there as well. Just don't lose this. This would be the last book you'd ever really want to lose. I'm going to move it off to the side. Speaking of things that are, well, speaking of the books, I guess one thing we can also look at as well is the real tape recorder is also the same one that we've also gotten in with earlier released of Ash figures. It does have some nice paint on the bottom of it. Of course, the little feet that keep it upright. I would love to get myself a little tiny wooden table. Have all of these accessories scattered across this. It's the one thing that really NECA is missing their mark on when it comes to these. Sure, it's nice to have all these things get packed with their figures, but if you really don't have anything to actually put them on top of, and see if I can find myself like a little wooden table. None of the actual reels do move here on the tape recorder, but again, you got the little switches and the knobs and dials. Very nicely detailed little representation of the thing that starts all the trouble. I'm going to put it off to the side. Let's hope we don't start any trouble. Figure also comes included with a shotgun. Yes, it's the same shotgun that we've gotten before. Painted nicely there is the silver on the side. And then, of course, you've got the brown back stock there. It's not yet cut off. He doesn't even have the means to cut anything off yet because this figure doesn't actually come included with a chainsaw. We have gotten other Ash figures that have come with chainsaws. This one just happens not to be one of those. The figure also comes included with quite an off-colored axe. The actual head of the axe is a very shiny black plastic, but it does have sort of a sickly looking green that's been splattered across it. It looks like Ash has already been busy either cutting off his own hands or cutting off the hands and the rest of the body parts of his girlfriend. A really off-colored axe, and I would have to remember if the original axe looked like this. I don't think it did. Of course, if you did, you still have that axe. Let me know down below in the comment section. One thing I really like is that there's a little, like, I don't know if it's a fingerprint of slime on the handle of the section of the axe. Might be where Ash was probably holding it as he was hacking away at bodies. Speaking of hacking away at bodies, how's that for a horrible segue? We have the decapitated head of his girlfriend, Linda. We have gotten this before. I mean, the coloring on this one, I think, is a little bit nicer. I mean, from what I'm remembering, at least. You've got the blood and what's left of the insides of the dead eye all splattered across the front of her face. Dead eyes, the deadest of eyes. A nicely sculpted head sculpt. And again, I just don't really have a place to put any of these things. tabletop. We need ourselves a little tiny table. Nice little detailed version of Linda's decapitated head. Let's move it off to the side. We'll be also looking at a couple of other decapitated things. One of the other things that the figure comes included with, not necessarily decapitated in the plan that, I mean, we already have the cut off hand, but there's also this hand that for all intents and purposes is really supposed to swap out with this arm here. The problem with it, though, is that the figure also comes included with a forearm. Now, this forearm does have just a regular relaxed hand, but you can already see the evil is getting possessed into it. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think somebody's going to have to cut that off pretty soon. Nails are now starting to grow a little bit longer. That's one of the telltale signs. If ever I see somebody that has really long nails, really unsightly nails, I always think, are they turning into a Deadite? Good thing I would have an axe. Now, this particular arm, you can see that it still has it, I'm surprised, is flaking off paint by like nobody's business. You can see on the end of it, the paint was really on the end of the peg. And I've removed this hand, this form a couple of times, thinking that I've done away with all of the paint. But you can see, like, I've still got it sticking to my hand. It's going to come off a couple of times if you happen to pick up this figure for yourself. The paint is nicely done. I just wish that more of it would stay on the actual plastic arm than actually getting on my own fingers. Now, you can swap it out with the existing hand that he has and the forearm that he has right now. It's just a case of unpegging it from the provided peg. Now, obviously, this one here, I mean, if you were to look at the figure as he is right now, bringing back in that original Ash, at least the one from 2016, has the exact same stump on the end of it. So, again, there's nothing really different between the two figures that way. The benefit, at least, of having multiples of these is that with the things that at least NECA packs with them, you can decide for yourself to customize these and change out some of the things if you really wanted to. The thing I did want to tell you, though, about this hand, or this arm, is the hand that's on the end of it. I'm just going to detach this hand. Probably not a good idea considering that it's possessed. I'm just going to put it off to the side, but I'm going to keep my eye on it. I did want to say, though, that the hand that it comes included with, for all intents and purposes, I'm guessing is supposed to attach onto the end peg here, but it does not. Every time I think I'm putting enough pressure against it, it doesn't stay properly in place, that it always falls off way too frequently. So what I'll do is I'll just reluctantly put back on the possessed hand. If you did want to change out this hand, by the way, you're going to take the Ash as he is right now. And he already has, I mean, he's already done the deed of cutting off the end of his hand that's possessed. But if you didn't want to go back to the beginning, you just undetach that, just pop that right off. And then you just take the new forearm that comes included with this figure and just pop it back in place. Again, I don't know where all this paint's coming from. I feel like I've already gotten off everything I could get from the end of that peg, and yet I still keep getting all this paint all over my hands. But this is what the regular hand and regular arm would look like. The only difference, again, is the fact that the hand is completely gone, and he's just wrapped it up before he puts on the end chainsaw. Kind of wish that the figure could come included with the chainsaw, but again, we already have enough Ash figures that already have that. The last thing that the figure comes included with, short of his interchangeable Deadite head, is that he also comes with the already cut off possessed hand. And really nice molding here. Still long fingernails. That's the telltale sign that somebody's possessed. You can see like the inside of the hand just looks gnarly. The discoloration of the brown and all the other off sickly colors of yellow really make this look like a sick looking hand. And again, you can see like the part, that's the exit. That's where the hand has left the remaining of his forearm and just sort of crawling around. I guess you could kind of just put it on the sides of his shoulder if you wanted to. Speaking of also things that are possessed, why we are in the topic of possessed things, the figure also comes included with his possessed head sculpt. Now, if you wanted to, because you already have a couple, I'm just making the assumption that you probably have a couple of these already in your collection. Yeah, you can use this head sculpt with a different body, or again, you can also use it with this body as well. Before we start swapping anything around and making him a Deadite, I did though want to quickly show you guys what the detail and looks to the face. He has the slightly a little more elongated jaw, really nice coloring. I love the way they've sunken in the eyes. It looks very much like it did from Evil Dead 2. Now, the head sculpt, I don't want to rush things along because this is a big talking point when it comes to this particular reissue. I don't know where along the timeline this happened, but somewhere between the release of this guy in 2016 and the release of this guy in 2022, somebody at NECA came up with the idea of shifting Ash's eyes. So instead of looking straight forward, they're actually off to the side. You'll see what I mean as I pick the figure up right now. Instead of his eyes looking straight forward like the 2016 release would have been, again, same body, instead of having the eyes looking straight forward, the eyes are actually lingering off to the side. Now, initially getting this figure, because I bought this guy online, and it was more so just the idea that I wanted to get an updated version. I've done that recently. I mean, been picking up a lot of reissue figures, just the idea I wanted the colors to be a little bit brighter, and a lot of times too, like the figure just comes across a little bit better. Not always the case, but notably though, when I got this one ordered online, I had no idea that the eye was going to be shifting to the side like this. The packaging gives no indication at all. In fact, the images shown on the back of the packaging shows still the eyes looking straight forward. So at some point, they decided they wanted to have the eyes looking off to the side. Initially thinking, I don't like the look of that. The longer, though, that I've had the chance to look at the figure and he's been looking off over here, the more I'm liking the idea that the eyes are a little off to the side like this. Because again, like we've already gotten enough of these ashes that are looking forward like this, that I find by having the eyes off to the side like this, it brings a little more personality to the figure's face. I mean, not only that, but the coloring of his face is a lot nicer of a natural skin color. Whereas again, like if you look at the two, there's definitely a more discoloration or a paler complexion on this version of Ash. So definitely the color's a lot nicer here in the newer release. The shirts are very similar in color. I keep bringing this back. The colors are very similar in color. The shirts are very similar in color, other than the fact that you will notice that not only is there some additional slime on the tops of his shoulders, but this one also has blood, whereas this one didn't have it before. Pants are going to be exactly the same, right down to the idea, in fact, actually, that they've got the little rip on the one side leg there. But I mean, other than that, I mean, to look at the two, I mean, obviously you're going to be looking at them now and saying, well, wait a minute, this one does have this severed stump. Where were you like 5 minutes ago? Other than that, it's the exact same figure. But, you know, not liking it initially, I'm really warming up to the idea. I don't want this on every figure, but to give us an occasional Ash where his pupils are pointing this way, I kind of like it. Didn't like it before. The longer I have this figure, though, now in hand, the more I'm really digging the idea of him looking this way. If you didn't want to stop him looking this way, we can go ahead and just detach the head from the peg, pop on the Deadite head sculpt. There we go. And again, like now you've got the Deadite head. The only thing I would say about the Deadite head is that the colors aren't quite jiving with the lower end of his neck. I mean, obviously it's missing some of the blood. It doesn't quite have the same coloring as the rest of the Deadite skin. But again, like the fact that we have like much better paint, I feel now in these figures. Let's get that all the way on there. The fact that we have much better paint, I feel, is still all the more reason if you already still have that original figure, it's still worth, I feel, the upgrade, especially considering that this one now has a little bit of a cosmetic change to his pupil. Not this one. This one's missing its pupils, but on the other head sculpt. Now for the articulation, this guy's going to have the exact same as the other one. So if you already have any one of those ashes, the continuation of posability is going to remain the same. Head's going to be on a ball joint, so yeah, it rotates all the way around. It looks up and down and back and forth, but I want to make sure I just got the head completely on there. The upper torso is still, once again, going to be on a ball joint too, so that rotates all the way around. Shoulders do come out at 90 degrees. You can take those arms and rotate them all the way around, both sides. Now, because again, like these are older figures, he only has a single hinge on his elbow. To though be fair, the original first Evil Dead, Ash Williams, the most recent one I think that we've gotten, also has only had a single hinge in the elbow. So they haven't really upgraded it in that department. Arm though rotates back and forth. Hands rotate also all the way around. The legs split the same way as the original one, only about that far. You can take the legs and move forward. You can move them back. Swivel at the top of the thigh. Single hinge only in the lower leg. But again, you can rotate that lower leg back and forth. Ankle pivot back and forth. And you can rock it back and forth this way as well. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, it's a strange thing because, like, picking this figure up online, you never really know what you're really going to be getting. I mean, I always really say if you get the chance to try to find these in the wild, find them in the wild, because then at least if you're one of those collectors where paint is always a problem, you're looking at him like, oh, I don't know, that little smudge that he has on the end of his chin, that's a deal breaker for me. If you're one of those kind of collectors, I would always really encourage, try to find these guys in the wild, because then you can go through what inventory that store happens to have and pick out the one that you think is perfect for your collection. Ordering it online, again, you never really know. You could have paint problems, or in a case like me, you could have a surprise, because again, my only intent was really to get just an upgrade to this one. And what I did end up ultimately getting was not only an upgrade on the paint, but a very surprising reveal when it comes to his eyes. Now, again, I don't know if earlier releases, because again, like even the 2022 reissue, I mean, we're still talking about a figure that's 2 years old. I don't know where along from 2016 to 2022 the decision was made to make side slanting eyes. But the end result, though, is a very interesting looking Ash. If you haven't had the chance to pick up an Ash, or you already have, say, this one that we've already had a look at from the 2016, or any one of the subsequent reissues that we've gotten over the years, don't overlook the idea of getting this one, especially if you want one that looks a little bit different from the rest. I don't know if it was maybe just a playing reel down in the dark cellar of my house that compelled me to want to pick up a new ash, because the other ash that I had was fine. It wasn't necessarily a case that the figure had limited articulation, because you're getting the same level of posability with this one. It's just an upgrade in paint. I will say, though, it is an upgrade in paint. It is noticeably better than the one that we got from 2016. There's only just a separation of really 6 years, but in 6 years, the paint has definitely been improved. But what, again, a surprise it was to get this guy out of the packaging. In fact, usually what I'll do is when this always arrives at my doorstep, not usually, that's always the case, sometimes they go to my post office, but either way, when I opened up the box and I took this out, because they have the benefit of the front flap, I was opening up usually the front flap because I can't wait to see the reveal. And when I looked inside, I had to second guess myself. Wait, is he looking off to the side? I wasn't expecting that at all. And yet, while I didn't like it initially, in fact, I was willing to really go into this review and say, like, why would they have decided to make his eye side shifted like that? The longer that I have now this figure in my collection, I think it adds to the personality and the craziness that Bruce Campbell brought to the role. I wouldn't necessarily encourage that if you already have an Ash Williams. I mean, I am within the collection space that I'm always going back to try to pick up a new reissue with always the hope in mind I'm going to get a better paint job or something that is standing out on that figure that wasn't the case with the figures before. If you already are happy with this particular mold of Ash, you may not want to decide to jump ship and move over to something new if you already have a figure that was doing the job fine in the first place. But I will say, though, one thing that's different about this one might be the one thing that pulls you in the direction of wanting to pick this up. If you were sort of on the fence on the idea of upgrading in the first place. Again, for 6 years, a difference of 2016 to 2022. What a difference those gaps of 6 years makes. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. I guess the bigger question would be to ask is, do you guys like the idea that his eye is looking off to the side? I hope, again, it's probably not a trend that's going to continue with everything, but I think it adds to the particular character of Bruce Campbell, and I think it makes the figure more interesting. But is that enough for you guys to worth picking this guy up? Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of him. Also, hey, as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, why not throw it a like? If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and you're on board to see some more NECA reviews, well, more are definitely going to be coming your way. The key to making sure that you're not missing on any of that is, yes, by hitting the subscribe button down below, and by, yes, turning on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.